Hi, this is Juan from JuanTutors.com. Welcome to my totally free office hours. Today we're working on the August 2016 New York Algebra 1 Common Core Regents problem number 28. If you want to download these tests, they're freely available online. Go to nysedregents.org, click on the appropriate tabs, and you can find the tests there. So here's the problem. When multiplying polynomials for a math assignment, Pat found the product to be negative 4x plus 8x squared minus 2x cubed plus 5. He then had to state the leading coefficient for this polynomial. Pat wrote down negative 4. Do you agree with Pat's answer? Explain your reasoning. Definitely pause this. Don't read what I just wrote. Just pause it and try it on your own. See if you do agree. Really think about it. See if you can rack your brain. See if if you can remember what you were taught. If you agree with our answer, click the like button. So here, the most common error is caused by what Pat did. He sees that the first coefficient is negative 4, so he said the leading coefficient is negative 4. Here's the reason that a lot of kids actually get this question wrong, is because we're so used to giving you polynomials in standard form that you get accustomed to the leading coefficient being the first coefficient. But that's not how we define the leading coefficient. After all, if we use the commutative property to manipulate these terms, change the ordering of the terms, then we'd get a different coefficient in front and a different leading coefficient, which would mean then that the leading coefficient is not well defined. But it is well defined. How do we define it then? Here's the definition. Standard form. A standard form for a polynomial is the expanded form of a polynomial with decreasing exponent order. So in this case, decreasing exponent order means negative 4x plus 8x squared minus 2x cubed plus 5 equals the highest exponent is 3. So that's the first term, negative 2x cubed. Then the next term, the next highest exponent is 2, so plus 8x squared. Then the next highest exponent is 1 on this x, so minus 4x. And then the next highest exponent is on the 5. This is the same as 5x to the 0th power. The exponent on x on the constant coefficient is 0. So plus 5. That's the lowest exponent. So here's another definition then. The leading coefficient of a polynomial is the coefficient of the highest degree term. Is the coefficient of the highest degree term. Okay, so in this case, it's negative 2. So yes, you do need to know what it means. So it's negative 2. So that's not enough to say. It's not enough to say no, it's negative 2 in this case. So here's what a good answer. The answer is Pat wrong. Pat is wrong, or I disagree with Pat's answer because, and the reason is that you could say that the coefficient of the highest degree term is the leading coefficient. So Pat is wrong because the leading coefficient is the coefficient of the highest degree term. In this case, the leading coefficient is negative 2. Is negative 2. So that's a perfectly valid 2-point answer. All done. I've seen other explanations, but they do have to be verbal. No, because the leading coefficient is -2 is a 1-point answer because you said no, and you gave a true statement to justify it, but it's not. It's this funny thing, this funny word, explain versus justify. Explain does not equal justify. You can't justify by doing you can justify by doing algebra, but you can't explain by doing algebra. You could use the algebra as part of your explanation, but you can't. It's not enough. So this is a correct answer. I've seen things like no, because when you put the polynomial in decreasing exponent order, the first coefficient is -2. That's also a valid definition. So let's make sure we review this by looking at an example problem that we've done. So define in words the leading coefficient and the constant coefficient of a polynomial. And based on these definitions, determine and state the leading coefficient and constant coefficient of the polynomial. And sorry, this is for the grammar police, this is spurious comma, should not be there. So define in words the leading coefficient and the constant coefficient in this polynomial. So definition, the leading coefficient of a polynomial. Notice that I use the word that they want me to define in the beginning is, okay, the coefficient of the highest degree term. Of highest degree term. And then the constant coefficient of a polynomial is, in this case, it's the constant coefficient of a polynomial is the term that's not being multiplied by any variables, by any changing expressions. Okay, so it's the term that is independent of the variable, the term that, and they would accept this definition. This is the definition I want you to think about, is not multiplied by n expressions involving x. So in this case, the constant coefficient is 4. I do always recommend that you do, so you could visually see what the leading and constant coefficient are, that you do put this in standard form. So the exponents are 1, 0, 2, and 3. So the leading term is -9x cubed. The next term is the squared term, minus 2 squared. The next term is the degree 1 term, it's minus 8x. And then the next term is the constant term, the term that's independent of all x's, is 4. Notice that 4 is not being multiplied by any values of x. So the leading coefficient is equal to -9, and the constant coefficient is equal to 4. Okay, that is your answer to this whole question. Hopefully, the discussion that we had helped you understand what the difference between the leading coefficient and the constant coefficient was. Hopefully, I also did a good enough job to explain that it's not just knowing what they are, but it's also avoiding the pitfall that they're looking for you to make, that you do have to put this in the correct ordering so that you could really visually see the leading coefficient, that it's not just simply just reading the first term and, hey, calling it quits. You got to do a little bit of thinking, making sure you don't fall into the traps that they're looking for you fall into. This is not a trick question, but it does have pitfalls. Why would they ask you an extremely easy question on the Regents, right? If it wasn't somewhat difficult, then it wouldn't be a fair question, a fair assessment of your actual skills. So I hope you liked what you saw. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video starting right now.